I'm going to talk specifically about what we do differently usually when they fire another agent or they come to an end to their agreement with another agent and they haven't produced a sale and they hire us instead. So oftentimes, and it's happening right now, which is why it's kind of a pertinent topic, it's happening right now more than in the past few years because most agents with a real estate license were able to create a sale in the past couple of years, and now it's becoming a little bit more difficult to navigate the market because the days on market in certain areas are a little bit different, pricing's a little bit different, and there's kind of two-tier structure to what things are going to sell for. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I broke down as the 5 things that we're going to do differently. So we get that question a lot, like, well, what are you going to do different than the agent that we had? So let's just break down a couple of things that are very different. And in this market, it really is an opportunity to stand out, which is why I appreciate when the market gets more difficult because all the systems that we have, we get to implement. And 3 years ago, even 2 years ago, houses would sell under almost any condition, and so you could almost hire anyone, and that was just the case that there wasn't a lot of opportunity to stand out, but now it is a little bit different. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to qualify with a strategy session up front. Most of the time we see agents come in, they're willing to take the listing at almost any price. We don't just take the listing. We qualify for motivation, timeline, all the decision makers. We do that on every single house that we sell and always have, at least for the last 10 years. And this can make a really big difference in a marketplace where your expectations are maybe not being met. So this basically ensures for us that the partnerships are in alignment. There's urgency, some form of urgency to get a home sold. There's commitment on both sides, which is usually necessary, unlike agents who might overprice or take unmotivated listings just to have it. One of the things that sellers will say to me all the time is, why would an agent just take my listing? We have to understand in our business, having a sign in your yard for some reason feels like a win to agents when they don't have enough signs in yards. So most people think, well, all agents are the same and what they do is the same. Well, in reality, a lot of agents are really tied to the idea that if they have a listing, they have a sign in the yard, they have something to talk about at sales meeting, they have something to post on their social media, that feels like a win. But in reality, if we don't produce a sale for you, it shouldn't be considered a win. And so when you're comparing agents, it's important to notice what's actually the definition of success here. If you just get a sign in my yard, and at the listing presentation, it should feel like, okay, I think they're willing to do whatever we want to do in order to get a listing. And so that should be a red flag for us that we might be in a rough situation. The second thing that we're going to do, which is the first thing that we do at the actual meeting, is we really dig in on data-driven pricing and positioning. Now, there was a lot of sentiment that basically you could list a home at any price, and so that presentation sounded like, well, how much do you want to list it for? I was thinking $750, and they're like, well, we want $829. Okay, well, we can try $829, and we'll see how it goes. I like $829, and as a seller, again, you should be thinking, where was the data in that presentation? So instead of promising the highest number, basically, again, just to win the listing, we deliver this market-driven pricing strategy. And it might make sense to talk a little bit further about what we're doing here, because this is where we're implementing AI at the highest level. We're going to use multiple platforms to take all the data. So that's going to be your property and all the information about your property that we take on. And a lot of that's public information. Some of it we get from visiting the property and photos. Also, I record a lot of notes with a recorder when I'm at the property so that I can bring all those details back to the AI, because there's parts of our business that require perfection, and this is definitely one of them. So once we take all those notes, then we drop it into our ChatGPT, and we also use Claude. Those are two programs that we use for this pricing model, and we're going to suggest that the learned language model will use all the comparables that we load and compare it to the property that we've given. So this is, by the way we've priced every property for 100 years in real estate. We're supposed to be taking other like properties that have sold and compare it to your property. But along the way, that has gotten really loose where an agent will say, well, I think we can get this. And I'll admit, there's a time in the market, like post-COVID, where it was like, I don't even know what someone might pay for this property. Let's explore the high side of this price. But we're definitely back to a balanced market where it makes sense to look at the data that's going to actually cause a home to sell. And so when we load that into ChatGPT and we load it into Claude, it gives us exact reference points, including acreage, price per square foot, beds and baths, garages, things that are actually important and things that an appraiser would look at, right? So once we've arrived at the right price, it's going to be based on the data, and you're going to be able to see why other properties are selling for that price and why your property is likely to sell for that price. So this is a really important piece, and sellers usually see that our pricing is about getting them the maximum net in the shortest amount of time, and those things are actually really important, not just based on your expectations, even though setting false expectations is usually the biggest problem. But if I tell a seller right now, look, it's going to take us 60 days to get this price, but I believe we can get the price based on the absorption rate in the area. Some sellers might be thinking, I was expecting my house to sell in 10 days because I've seen these other properties have sold pretty quickly, and they might be very different properties. We have a 2-story property in Overland Park right now that's struggling against the 1.5 stories, and that might not be something that a seller is prepared for. So we want to make sure that everybody's prepared for what they're going to experience when their house goes on the market. So the data-driven pricing is very important, and I find that it's very different than what we see a lot of people doing. Third thing we're going to do is an aggressive multi-channel marketing plan. So if you're seeing this video, you've probably seen some of our other channels, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We have LinkedIn. We still run a lot of things on LinkedIn. We use TikTok. All these different channels are meant to meet different segments of the market because we see different people clicking through depending on the size of the property. We just listed a $1.5 million condo at the Walnut on the Plaza, and that's going to be a very different segment. We don't expect to reach that buyer on Facebook necessarily, but we might reach the buyer on LinkedIn. We might reach it through our YouTube channel and our website and our pay-per-click campaigns and all the other effective uses of marketing that we're using right now. So we prepare a 24-hour marketing blitz, professional photography. We do videos with voiceover, all the different mediums that someone might see the property. And social media is really probably the biggest inbound click that we see for just views, but we also have aggressive pay-per-click campaigns on Google that are going to target the area, target the keywords, and make sure that people will see that property. So the aggressive multi-channel marketing plan is prepared within 24 hours, and we have multiple listings if you want to look on our Facebook or on our YouTube or on our Instagram right now that are in that 24-hour window this week that we're taking over from other agents that we're actively marketing on our channels. The fourth thing that we're going to do very differently, and I'm hesitant to say which one of these seems like the thing that the sellers have noticed is what we do incredibly differently, but what I know is we have relentless communication and feedback loops. So one of the top reasons that the clients will fire agents and hire us is poor communication. We see that all the time because they don't know what to say, or they don't really even know what they're experiencing. I guess it's been a long time since I could even consider thinking this way, so I'm not sure. But it's possible they're just waiting for someone to bring an offer so that they don't have to call the seller and explain, what have you been doing to try to get my house to sell? And I know that when sellers call with that question, we try to make sure that we're proactive so that they know what we're doing all the time. But there's not a million things that you can do to cause a home to sell. It is important to utilize MLS. It is important to utilize basic social media and have a good following and have a good budget behind that. But in addition to that, we find that just good, solid communication every single week saying, here's exactly what we did to try to find the buyer for your house. So every seller knows exactly where they are in the process and what the buyers are saying, what adjustments need to be made. So number 4 is going to be communication. Number 5, and as I get through number 5, I think this is a huge difference, especially when it's mishandled, is negotiation strength and accountability. So we have a track record of putting these deals together, and I'm very vulnerable to say that we have had deals 15, 20 years ago that we put deals together thinking maybe this deal shouldn't be together. Where I find that agents get really weak in this market right now is they're ready to put any deal together that they see. We have 2 offers on 2 separate properties today that we're choosing not to put together. And my communication with the seller was, I would not take this offer. And I can tell you just from all my experience with other agents in the market is this is where other agents fold under the pressure because they feel at the moment, again, that's a win that they have. If the property is under contract, at least they'll stop calling me and ask me what I'm doing to get this house sold. So effective objection handling with the buyers and with the agents, being able to deal with the cooperating agents to make sure that everybody's on the same team trying to get the property under contract, handling those negotiations, but most importantly, we hold ourselves accountable that if we put a deal together, it makes sense from top to bottom. All the terms make sense, and it is a deal that we would actually consider doing ourselves. So in summary there, everything that we're doing to get a home to sell from top to bottom should feel incredibly different, especially if you had a failed sale or you never received an offer with another agent. I encourage you to interview multiple agents to make sure that you have the right agent, but if you should decide to hire me, what you're going to find is every single appointment, whether you've canceled with another agent or not, is going to include all 5 of these things, proper expectations, and our track record of the other homes that we've sold that are similar to yours. These are the things that I would consider if I was hiring an agent, knowing what I know. Take care.